Yo, book nerds. Today we're gonna go over some stats and the goals that I had set for 2022 and see how I did. So I pretty much only had 2 goals for 2022 when it came to my reading. So my first goal was to read 9 books total, which I completely destroyed. I know 9 books doesn't seem like a lot to some other booktubers, but for me that is a lot. And so I actually read 13 books this year, which is crazy to me. I completely destroyed that goal. So I got 13 out of 9. Awesome. I'm so happy. So first goal was a check. My second goal was that I wanted to knock off some books from my TBR that had been on there for a long time. And I had chosen the year 2014 as my cutoff for this because that's when I started college. So you can check out my video if you wanted to know all the books on that list, and I'll link it. I can't remember how many books there was on that list exactly, but I wanted to read 5 of them over this year. And I am happy to say that I did do that as well. So my second goal is also a check. So I'm very happy that I met both of my goals, and we're gonna go through some stats now quick. And after that, I will rank the books that I read this year from worst to best. So we'll start with some Goodreads stats. So like I said, I read 13 books, which added up to 5,202 pages. This does not include the reading that I did for school or anything that I read for my daughter. I talked a little bit about what I read for school in my previous video, which I'll also link if you want to check that out. But this is just purely the stuff that I read for myself for pleasure. So 5,202 pages. It's crazy to me. The Mysterious Stranger and Other Stories by Mark Twain was the shortest book that I read this year, which came in at 128 pages. And then 11/22/63 by Stephen King was the longest book that I read this year, which came in at 849 pages. The average book length that I read was 400 pages. The most shelved book, meaning the book that has been shelved by other readers on Goodreads the most, was Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, which has been shelved 3,490,491 times. The book that's been least shelved on Goodreads was The Mysterious Stranger and Other Stories, which has only been shelved on Goodreads 3,408 times. So that's it for the Goodreads stats that I got. Some other stats for you guys though. I did read 5 classics: The Mysterious Stranger and Other Stories, Little Women, Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu, Persuasion by Jane Austen, and then Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. And in addition to my 5 classics, I did read 1 modern classic, which was The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. The rest of the books that I read were all modern fiction. I did not read any nonfiction this year, unfortunately. I read so much nonfiction for school, but I didn't read any personally outside of school. And I also read countless picture books to my daughter. All right, let's get into ranking these books. I'm going to start with my least favorite and work my way to my favorite book of the year. I'll say right out, I didn't hate any of these books. If you want a full review on any of these books, go look at my past videos. I have a review for every single one of these books. So I'm not going to go in depth with these books at all, since there are videos you can check out if you want more information. So we're just going to rank them right now. So in 13th place is The Bridge to Neverland by Dave Barry and Ridley Pearson. This is the 5th book in the Peter and the Starcatchers series. This was definitely a book I did not click with. I didn't hate it. I just did not think it was necessary for this series. In 12th place, we have Peter and the Sword of Mercy, which is the 4th book in the Peter and the Starcatcher series, which is by, again, Dave Barry and Ridley Pearson. This book just was very similar to book number 3, and so I, again, didn't hate it, but didn't really feel like it was necessary to the story. Moving right down the line with number 11, Peter and the Secret of Rundoon. This is the 3rd book in the Peter and the Starcatcher series. I did enjoy this book. I just have read a lot of really good books this year. So unfortunately, this is where it's ranking. Peter and the Shadow Thieves by Dave Barry and Ridley Pearson, which is the second book in the Peter and the Starcatcher series, is going to place number 10. I actually really liked this book. But again, I've just read some really great books this year, and so it had to place somewhere. So I really did enjoy this one though. And I am not just going to go straight down the line with those books. Coming in spot 9 is going to be Mark Twain's The Mysterious Stranger and Other Stories. I really liked these stories when I read them. I enjoyed them. They were funny. I'm just honestly not huge on short stories, and so I enjoyed them, and I'm glad I read them, but it was definitely not one of my top picks for this year because I would much rather read a novel than short stories. That's just me. In 8th place is going to be Peter and the Starcatchers, which is the first book in that series, again by Dave Barry and Ridley Pearson. This book was just so much fun. If you've read Peter Pan, if you like Peter Pan, it's just a fun twist on it. The series is middle grade, so it's not going to be for everyone, but it's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun reading it. This was a reread for me. I had 3 rereads this year. This was one of them. In 7th place is S.E. Hinton's The Outsiders. This was another one of my rereads. I really enjoyed this book. I love it. It's great. I think it's great. In 6th place is going to be Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. This book made me so emotional. Reading it as a mother especially, and the parts that talk about little children, I seriously got teared up many times reading this book. It was very powerful. In 5th place is Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu. This was my read for spooky season this year. It's a vampire story. I really enjoyed it. It was such a quick read, and I highly recommend it. In 4th place is 11/22/63 by Stephen King. I loved this book. It was so great. I have read novellas by Stephen King before, but never a full-length novel. And man, did I get a full-length novel here. It was so good though. I loved it. The only reason it's ranking 4th is because I feel like the ending could have been a little bit stronger than it was, but still no complaints at all. I thought it was really good. Really, really good. And I look forward to reading more Stephen King in the future. All right, so now we're getting to my top 3. And man, was it so hard to choose an order for these because I loved all of these books so much. Honestly, these 3 could probably be interchangeable because I just loved them so much. So it was really, really close, but I didn't want to wimp out and make it a tie. So in 3rd place is Persuasion by Jane Austen. I just love Jane Austen so much, and I really enjoyed this book. I just recently watched a movie adaptation on Netflix for this, which I thought was pretty good. I had some issues with the adaptation, but I did like it overall. And I loved the book so, so much. And I was so happy to read Jane Austen again because it's been a little while. But this was the 3rd Jane Austen book that I've ever read, and I'm excited to read some more Jane Austen in the future. In 2nd place is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This was my 3rd reread of the year. And man, I just love this book so much. It is just like a warm hug. It is such a feel-good book. Even when there's hard stuff going on in it, like the love that this family has is just so great and wholesome, and I just love this book. And I'm really glad that I finished this one in 2022. I'm now reading the sequel and plan to read the 3rd book after that, and I'm glad that those will be on my 2023 list and not with this one because I just know that this book would just blow them out of the water. So I'm glad that I don't have to rank this book against its sequels because there's just no competition. I just already know this. There's just no competition. Little Women is amazing. I love this book. And in 1st place is The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. This was the first book I read this year, and I just loved it so much. I honestly, like, it just blew me away. I have no words. And it just had to be my number one because I related so hard to this book. It is beautiful. It is heart-wrenching. It is perfect. I love it. And I'm so mad that it took me so long to read this book. Like, I am so surprised that my number one isn't a classic because, you know, I love my classics so much, but I had to have this as my number one. It is flawless. I love it. It's great. I have no words, honestly. I just have no words. It's just wonderful. So you need to read it. If you haven't read it, you need to read it. It's great. So there you go. Those are the 13 books that I read this year and how I ranked them. Overall, it was such a great reading year. I am so happy with all the books that I read. I did not hate any of them. A couple of them were a little bit disappointing, but they weren't like ones that I would outright hate. I didn't DNF any books. I'm just really happy with how this year went. It was great. And I hope next year goes just as well. Also, on a little side note, I have hit 100 subs on YouTube, which is incredible to me. I just can't believe that I've got 100 of you guys that care and subscribed, and I'm just so grateful. I love you all, and I hope you guys have had a great new year, and I hope that 2023 is full of wonderful things for all of you on YouTube. I hope you guys had as good of a reading experience in 2022 as I did, and I hope we all head into 2023 with high hopes and no disappointments, and I hope we all have great reading years again. That's all for me this week. I will see you guys next Monday. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for talking books with me.